Bill, I was talking about uh, the, the incense burner. You know, the urn for the ash at the center of the shrine.
Uh-huh.
If you recall, when we were all out there in Indiana, that was the one thing that Master William forgot.
Yeah.
So what happens is that the community rallies around you when you are getting ready to have your own shrine. So one of the things that they did was that all these other tanzu, these other shrine owners, they collected the ash from their urn. They kept that separately for the purpose of starting a new one. So what was supposed to happen, Bill, at the time, this was back in 2005, was that that ash was supposed to make its way to you, and then we fill your incense burner with the ash, so that you would already start out with a very comfortable level where you can start working with it. But if you recall, Master William forgot to do that, so we ended up getting a bunch of rocks from like the gardening store.
Yep, I do recall. In fact, there are still rocks at the bottom of that incense burner.
Well, it's kind of a chapter from its history.
It is, and once an object becomes tied to and associated with the sacred space, I don't feel like messing with it. I don't. Nothing ever gets taken out or added from there.
I definitely support that perspective. This was something that Ed was, had taken note of, and he was taken by this notion. What happens is that when you're getting ready, there's that I don't even know what to call it, but there's this metal implements that's round. It's kind of like a pizza cutter, except it's you use it to smooth out the ash.
Hey, Derek?
Yes.
Can I help you with that one?
Sure.
It looks like the base to an old percolator coffee pot filter holder.
Yes.
If anybody remembers what a percolator is, if they're that old.
Yes. Bill, that's perfect. And how's the arm?
Much improved.
Okay. So what Ed found really interesting, Bill, and maybe you do as well, is that before you start, you want to smooth out the ash in the urn, and you use this metal thing, with a flat round base, and it's actually so I don't know how you do it, Bill, but it's actually tougher than it looks to smooth it out.
It is extremely difficult. And what Master William told me about that was that the more still and tranquil one's able to make the mind, the easier that task becomes. And so when I approach the shrine before the rituals to smooth the sand, first I smooth out my mind.
Yes.
And it allows me to apply a very, very gentle touch to the earth and the incense burner.
Yes.
Did you describe that? What it is? I think it is volcanic. It's volcanic ash or pumice or something. It's as fine as talcum powder. It sticks to everything, and a single breeze will blow it all over.
You are exactly correct.
And so to smooth it is a challenge for one who can't use a gentle touch.
Exactly. What to me, what is so cool about it is that it becomes a mini ritual. Not only that, but it's actually a perfect reflection. It becomes a perfect reflection of your inner state of mind.
Yes, it does.
If you are agitated, if you are stressed out from work, and you're not able to let go of your worries and your anxiety, there's no chance that you will be able to make that smooth.
I'm telling you.
you at that point, you have to basically take a step back, deep breaths, still your mind. When you feel ready, approach the ash urn again, and then do the gentle touch again. And if the next time you are able to smooth it out, like still water, then that's how you know you've done it. See,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that cannot be faked. You cannot just pretend to be tranquil and serene to other people. Pretend to be spiritually cultivated and refined, and then you can't do something like that. That's like the ultimate test. It proves where you are at.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what other folks do, but yeah, I use the time when I'm preparing the water and the tea as that time to let go of everything else that's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's like a mini tea ceremony for yourself before the ash smoothing.
yeah.
Um, and
Nobody ever put that in the instructions, but I
that's
found it
right.
helpful.
That's right. It's not in the book. It's actually not in the book, but I feel like it's so incredibly important. When I did the translation for the book, I just went by what was passed down from generation to the next, and that's what's in it. But then when I observe people actually go about it, I realize that there's a whole bunch um, that happens right before what's described in the book.
Right. There's the whole preparatory thing, making the offerings, getting them ready, getting the
That's
tea
right.
ready,
It's a
cleaning
very
everything
powerful
up.
practice, Bill.
Beg pardon?
Oh, no, sorry to interrupt. I was just saying that it's a very powerful practice.
It is. And in fact, doing that kind of colors my entire day. It's where
Exactly.
I start.
Exactly. Listen, I'm gonna go close a couple of doors and then we can get going. How's that?
Oh yeah, we're actually about 6 or 7 minutes over right now. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just a lot of fun to talk about that shrine stuff.
It is. And it doesn't come up a lot. And it probably should come up more.
Cool. Okay, Bill. I would say that we are all ready to do the meeting beginning ritual. What do you say?
Yes, please do.
Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and do it together. 起立，念向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated. So my apologies for taking up that time. We were discussing Bill's shrine and how the ash urn right in the middle of it actually becomes a really cool mini practice all by itself. And this is on my mind because last time, I presented some stuff on Chinese characters, and there's like a few people that are really interested. But then we talked about sacred space, and a lot more people were interested in that. So I thought about how Bill has walked this path, what I call like the pretty arduous path that Ed is also walking now, and they have this beautiful shrine, and people that are not ready to make the commitment, like those two guys, like Bill and Ed, they can nevertheless create a mini sacred space in their own homes, and therefore that becomes a topic that I would like to contribute to. But before I get into that, I should not take up any more of Bill's time. Bill, my apologies. Such a big topic, such an interesting topic. I'll return to that after you are done, and hopefully, if Ed's going to be joining us after he is done.
Okay. I appreciate it very much. And you and I have talked a lot in the past about the synergy that occurs, particularly between you and I on these Sunday study group meetings. And as it turns out this morning, I'm talking about achieving real peace.
Okay.
Which segues right into or right out of the discussion about the shrine. And if there's interest out there to hear a discussion on the shrine how it works, what it does, what the nature of the sacred space is. You know, a lot of the things that we don't really discuss here. I'd be more than happy to do that with some assistance from you, because there are teachings uh, and things that the Tiansu gets that's not often discussed, right?
Absolutely correct. I'm going to go ahead and mute my microphone now.
Okay,
You have the stage.
alrighty, thank you. One of the things that Derek mentioned, and I don't know how far along that got, was the creation of the sacred space, and what occurs there, and it's in both the etiquette and disciplines of the Iguandao and the new book as well. It talks about what happens when one begins to do the rituals, as one stills and centers the mind and the spirit and prepares for the conduct of the rituals. And what occurs in brief is that the area in which the shrine is located becomes a focal point for the spiritual energy of the Tao that is brought into being or transferred or focused during the conduct of the ritual. It's one of the things that makes the rituals powerful, and one of the things that keeps the Tiansu going. It's a palpable energy. You can feel it. And in fact, when we installed the shrine, that energy was so intense that not only could those of us who were immediately involved in installing the shrine feel it, but my kids could feel it, my wife could feel it. It was a pervasive energy that went through a crowd of 30 people or more that were gathered there to watch this event. And I wound up spending a fair amount of time explaining how and why that happened afterwards, because a large number of the people there were not affiliated with the temple. They were simply friends of mine or relatives or acquaintances who wanted to see the event. And part of having the shrine and following these teachings leads up to the topic that I wanted to chat about this morning. This one actually came from my wife. At some point in time during the week, I'll look up at my kids or Paige or whoever's sitting around and say, okay, what am I talking about this week? And my wife says, well, why don't you talk about achieving real peace? And so I said, that's a good topic. That's a topic we should talk about, and it is. And I set about trying to find a single chapter of the Tao Te Ching that addressed this particular topic, but there isn't one. Nor is there anybody who can really explain in a single chapter about the attainment of real and genuine peace and tranquility and stillness of the mind and spirit in a single chapter. And that's okay. But that thought process led me back to a couple of articles that Joss Slabbert had written, and I think he wrote them a long time ago. I've had an occasion to correspond with Joss every now and again, but the writing is exceptional. It's wonderful. It's really quite amazing. And it reminded me that there are perhaps more things to be looked at than just looking for a single collection of words and teachings to describe this where one doesn't exist. So what I did was, in light of that, I sat down and thought about what are the things that bring about peace in my life. What are the things that bring about peace and happiness in the lives of the people that I know? You know, how is it that works? What is it that I do, that they do, that other people do, that allows them to have that pretty much continual upbeat attitude and a joyous, happy, and peaceful existence? And I came up with a number of broad categories, which you've all heard before. But for the sake of hopefully creating some understanding and wisdom, we're going to review them all again. Besides, achieving peace is one of my favorite topics. From the Tao perspective, there are a number of key principles without which we cannot have peace. So, wanting to keep things positive, we'll start by talking about what we have to have, the skills and traits that we have to cultivate to have a joyful and peaceful life. The first one of those is detachment. Detachment occurs in a variety of forms, but there are three main focal points in Lao Tzu's teachings about detachment. There is unattached actions. The term wei wu wei that gets bandied about so much and misinterpreted so often. The action without action. The acting without doing anything. Okay, sometimes doing nothing is the appropriate decision for a given situation, but very often we have to do something, and in the process of doing it, the important thing is not to hold on to it, right? To do what needs to be done, withdraw, disappear, forget it, let go of it, and that in and of itself is a springboard towards another level of peace and joy in our lives. By detaching ourselves from what we have to do, from what we need to do, we allow ourselves to be free from the stress and anxiety of ownership and desires that go along with actions that are done with an agenda. There is holding without possessing, the illusion of ownership and control. Okay? It says that the sage can have all sorts of things, but that he holds those things and doesn't possess them. As things come into his life, he's happy to have them. As they go out of his life, he's happy to let them go. And please understand, I'm not being gender biased. It's the literary his and him. I've seen a number of these chapters interpreted in the feminine perspective, and I find that viewpoint a bit refreshing. However, being a guy, I tend to think of things in the masculine literary context. So, to hold what we have, but not possess it, not own it, not desire it, not worry over it, is another one of those things where we can either create a ton of stress for ourselves or where we can get rid of a ton of stress. I try to make a habit of going through my garage at least once a year and getting rid of all the stuff I haven't used in a year, except for things like legal documents and what have you that you got to keep for 7 to 10. But a day after the 7th or 10th year, if I can, I get rid of those too. It's a process that's symbolic in nature from a spiritual perspective, such that when I clean out the garage, I try to unclutter the mind and heart as well. That's not quite as easy as cleaning up all the junk in the garage, but it's an essential part of the process. It's another component to detachment, to not hanging on to things, to not desiring things, to not wanting what we can't have or don't have. Okay? And the third major focus is leading without controlling. Lao Tzu speaks volumes about leading but not forgetting to be behind, about not daring to be at the forefront of the world, about assuming leadership but not controlling, about being the sovereign but without an agenda. All of those terms, all of those lessons, all of those chapters deal with doing what we have to do, in this case, perhaps assuming a leadership role of some description, but to do so without an agenda that inflicts discomfort and ill will on other people. In fact, it's leadership without controlling others. It's leadership by a sound example and wise instruction. And if we go to chapter 35 of the Tao Te Ching, one of the things that it talks about is that leading without controlling. It says that if the ruler can hold on to the great image, and I've always interpreted that to mean the Tao itself, that all under heaven will come of their own free will and accord, and they'll come without being subjected to harm or without being in any danger. That's Mr. Bill's paraphrased edition, but it's pretty close. Having that leadership role without controlling others is a skill that has to be cultivated. And I'm not going to kid you, I'm by no means anybody's guru on that particular teaching. It's been something I've struggled with my entire professional life, is that I've often come off as being somewhat bellicose, somewhat dictatorial or autocratic when I speak. And so learning and following these teachings has had a rather profound impact on how I address and treat other people, because in the past I didn't know, I wasn't even aware of the fact that I was being less than kind and gentle with others. And these days I'm now so painfully aware of it that I do the very best that I can to make myself small and soft-spoken. I have a big voice. I am a big guy. And sometimes, without me even trying, people find that intimidating and a bit scary. So over the years, particularly as I've started cultivating these teachings, I've worked on ways to make myself appear not so doggone big, and to make sure that my voice is soft and gentle and kind. And it's working, thankfully. I've had my boss at work tell me a couple of times that he's heard I'm one of the nicest guys around up there. And that was the biggest compliment I think I've ever been paid in business. He says people find me scary, intimidating, and intimidating until they talk to me. And then they realize that I'm not scary and intimidating at all. That is a direct reflection of the effect of these teachings on my life. And you might wonder the relevance to leading without controlling in those statements. I'm going to tell you that when one communicates with others in an autocratic manner, the other people perceive a level of control, whether it's intended or not. It kind of comes off sounding like do what I say or else. And you know, I never ever meant to come off sounding that way. But the intent didn't make any difference. It's what the other people heard. And that, when it comes to achieving peace, is the most important point in leading without controlling. It's never about us. It's always about the other person. How does what we say and what we do look and sound to the person to whom we are speaking or engaged with in some way? That's a big deal. The second major category is non-contentious. We talk about this all the time, and we should, because there are opportunities for arguments and debates and conflict and fights and all sorts of things in our lives with every person we know. Our children while we're raising them, our spouse, our friends, the people we work with, you know, especially in settings where there might be multiple correct ways to get something done. In a meeting to figure out how to do that, there can be a tremendous brawl. I've seen it happen. It's not necessary, but everybody feels that need to be right. For one who practices these teachings, non-contention at that point is one of accepting all points of view, not just the one that happens to be the solution they're pushing or the opinion that they hold. It's the acceptance of all opinion, of all alternatives, giving equal credence and consideration to each until the best solution's found. It's about conscientiously stepping out of conflict and highly emotionally charged situations. It's not putting ourselves in the middle of an opportunity to get drug into a fight. And that can sometimes be easier said than done as well. It's one of those things where we have to look at another person and say, even if we only say it to ourselves, I'm not going to fight with you today. We're not going to have this argument, not going to have this heated discussion. Non-contention also means tolerance. It means having enough room in our hearts and minds for other people and for their beliefs and their ideas and their opinions, whether we particularly believe they're right or not. It's not necessarily our place to judge what another person thinks and feels. And in the case of opinion, opinions are like belly buttons. Absolutely everybody has one. So why argue over whether or not someone else's opinion is correct? It simply is their own, just as ours is our own. Okay? Even if the discussion's over material facts, the fact that one person knows the truth, the facts as it were, and another person does not, is not an excuse or a license to have a huge debate or argument. Why? Because those things never persuade anyone to change their mind or their viewpoint, and it always creates disruption and disharmony in the relationship. Disruption, disharmony, the after effects of those arguments and debates and contests are one of the things that rob us of peace in our lives. Okay? We've all done something at some point in time, for instance, that we found incredibly embarrassing, right? Everybody does. It's not that we intended to embarrass ourselves horribly, it just happens. Well, when that happens, every time we think about it, we get a feeling that's kind of like having ice water flowing through our bodies. And we prefer that never, ever, ever come up. Well, okay, we ought to treat debates and arguments and verbal fights and, heaven forbid, physical altercations in the same way that we look at those things that have happened to us that are really humbling and embarrassing, as something to be completely avoided and never participated in. Non-contention also means compassion. It is through the eyes of compassion that we gain acceptance for and tolerance of other people and their ways and customs and opinions and a whole bunch of other things, such that we're able to have a peaceful and harmonious relationship with other people than ourselves. If we want to get along with anybody, we have to learn to be a bit compassionate. We have to learn to see through the other person's eyes a bit, to consider how they feel, what they think, what they believe. In other words, to take the focus off I and me and put the focus on you and we. It sounds so simple, and yet it is so difficult at times to put into practice. It's going on right about 2 o'clock, and in the interest of keeping things moving, I'm going to skip ahead to my summary, and then we're going to go back and finish the rest of this next week. But I want to be able to give these parts each their due, and I don't want to cut into the rest of the meeting too much. Let's try and keep in mind for a week that there really is no single chapter in the Tao Te Ching that instructs one in the methods of finding and achieving real peace in life. Rather, there are multiple chapters which, when we take them together, provide that recipe for creating peace in one's life. And so if I could suggest a little homework, perhaps as you're reading through the Tao Te Ching at some point or another, or if you make an opportunity to do so, You might look at chapter 2, chapter 35, chapter 40, a couple other ones that have to do with non-attachment, non-contention, and peacefulness, and see if maybe they don't speak to you a bit. Second of all, by learning and following these teachings, and through diligent practice, okay, there is the practice component, we can gain the skills that allow us to live a life of peace and harmony. That's absolutely the truth. It's never just about academia, about what we learn, about what we know. It's always about what we learn and then how we can apply that knowledge to help us live a more skillful life. Okay, if all we ever did was read the Tao Te Ching, then our lives would not progress an inch, which leads me to the conclusion that practicing the teachings helps us to transform knowledge into wisdom, the knowledge and intent of the Tao teachings into working actions and a skillfully lived life. That's where the rubber really meets the road. That's where the feet walk the path. That's where the transformation from who we were to who we should become takes place. I wish you all a wonderful week, and as usual, I truly hope that something that comes out of this talk will be helpful for somebody. Thank you so much.